I'm from Bangalore, working as an educator in one of the international schools here. I'm so excited hosting this session here today. Thank you, Mr. Ram Babu and SGF for giving me this opportunity of hosting this maiden offline session, I would say. Right? So early days we had online session, and this is our maiden offline session. I'm so glad to be a part of this. And a small request to the panel members. Please maintain the time limit because we have to finish the meeting on time. Thank you so much. To begin with, we will have our prime mover, Mr. 𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐬𝐧𝐶, to introduce the guests. Can we have Mr. 𝐅𝐢𝐫𝐬𝐧𝐶 introducing the guest?
Once again, a very good evening to you all. My name is 𝐊𝐧𝐸𝐬𝐧𝐶. I am from Madhoni, Andhra Pradesh. I am very much delighted and privileged to introduce our speakers for today's program, Advanced Meet 405. He is Mr. Jacob Britt Garu. He is born and brought up in Washington, D.C., United States. Currently, he is working as a senior operator in the Peregrine Service Solutions for the last 5 years in Bangalore, India. So right now, he is going to deal the session on the topic leadership, knowing and doing. So I hope to see a wonderful session from you. Thank you one and all for giving this opportunity.
So Ms. Jacob, I would like to hand over. Thank you.
It is a joy to be with you. It's a real honor. Listening and hearing, there's one statement that has been very pivotal in my life. By the way, brother, I am only 42. Okay. But this statement has been true for me, and I think it's true for you here as well. The statement is, iron sharpens iron. And as we work together, we become even sharper in the work that we are doing. What I would like to do in the next few moments that we have together is talk to you about the subject of leadership, knowing and doing. Over the last 20 plus years of my life, I have been afforded an opportunity to be in positions of leadership. But what I've learned is leadership is practiced in a moment, but it's developed over the course of a life. Let me say that again. Leadership is practiced in a moment, but it's developed over the course of a life. The great leaders that you and I see, the ones that we admire, the ones that we want to be like, they have not developed those skills in the moment that we see them. He or she has been refined over years, decades, even lifetimes to be able to do what they are doing in the moment when we see them. So what I want to do is to start with is just acknowledging there is a vast difference between a spoken understanding of leadership and a lived understanding of leadership. In the church world, we would say it, spoken theology and lived theology. A leader who speaks about integrity but then demonstrates corruption. Is that a person that's really a leader? He or she may say the right thing, but their life may demonstrate that they are not living out what they are speaking. So as we start, let us consider, may we not just speak the right words, but embody them as well. As I sat listening, I heard some rather lofty and ambitious goals, moving from a group our size to extending to 1 million. I think I even heard 1 billion. Now, I don't do Indian numbers well, but that's a lot of crores, right? So we think about, how do we get there? What are the obstacles that we will encounter to move from where we are to where we would want to be? Dealing with working with others, collaboration, flexibility, understanding who we are. And all of that is founded on who we are. Not just as an organization, not just as a trust, not just as a foundation, but who you are when no one is looking. You see, for our work to grow, it cannot be one person growing it. It cannot be one person pushing it. It must be all of us engaged all the time. That is value. That is character. That is foundation. And so what I would like to do is for us to think for a moment about leadership in two realms. First, knowing, and then doing. Now, when I consider healthy, robust leadership, you can come up with any number of examples. I can think of leaders that I am encouraged by, but I would not want to be like. Men and women who may be strong and they can capture and captivate and motivate people to do things. But quite honestly, their character is not worth following. And so what I would like to do for the few moments we have to consider knowing as a part of leadership, put before you a model of leadership that I would call serve. This is not unique to me. Ken Blanchard, Chick-fil-A in the U.S., many have looked at this serve model as a concept of leadership that really draws two parallels and states simply that leadership operates in one of two ways. First, you have self-serving leadership. Leadership that works to the benefit of the leader himself or herself. Or you have selfless leadership that works for the benefit of those that you are serving and leading. But let me start with a question. Maybe you'll write down a note there. What is leadership? How do you define leadership? Is it a word? Is it a concept? Is it an activity? Is it something you aspire to? Or are you born with it? Are there natural born leaders? Or is a leader made over the course of a period of time? Are leaders revealed in moments of crisis? Or are they made over a course of a life? These are all questions we must consider. We have different levels of talent, different levels of ability. But talent and ability do not simply make a leader. There are some who have drive and determination, a willingness to work, a discipline within them that will take them much farther than someone who may be more naturally gifted. And so what I would want us to do as we begin to look at this serve model of leadership is to begin asking the question, who do you want to be as a leader? Not aiming at a person, but from within. Who were you created to be, and what type of leader rather were you created to emulate, to be, to serve? Are you a self-serving leader, or are you a servant leader? There's a fascinating story that I've become familiar with over the course of my life. It's about a very influential leader who, in a moment of clarity in his own life, in a moment of struggle in the lives of his followers, bent down to do something very humbly. He decided he would wash their feet. In a moment of what must have been personal humiliation, he demonstrated a mechanism of leadership that left his followers dumbstruck. They did not know what to say. They could not speak. In fact, all they could do was to say, a leader should not serve like this. This is beneath the leader. Some of you know the very story that I'm speaking about. We recognize in that moment that Greek leader, as he finished, he stood and he said, now if you want to lead, you must serve like I have served. You see, that same leader said that he came to serve and not be served. You see, I think that's a pivotal understanding for leadership. When we think about how do we bring others into sharEvery, we must first embody those characteristics ourselves. We must not expect from others what we are unwilling to do in ourselves. So let me give you the serve model quickly, and then I'll explain it a little more thoroughly, and then we'll move from section 1, where we are talking about the knowing of leadership, and we're going to then talk about the doing of leadership. So number 1, the serve model. You are to see and to shape the future. That's your S. If you write an acrostic, SERVE, see and shape the future. Again, after what I've listened to here over the course of the last hour and a half, that's exactly where we are as an organization. We are trying to see and embody that future. I remember a university president once said, leadership is the ability to see what is not yet and then build it. I love that. The fact that, brother, you said $1 billion. When I heard $1 billion, I thought, well, y'all got a job to do, right? There's work to be done. But somebody saw that preferred future. We saw what it looked like. It may not be now. So, we see and shape the future. Secondly, the E, engage and develop others. Engage and develop others. Some would argue that leadership is essentially influencing other people. You can be a good leader, you can be a bad leader, you can influence in a healthy direction or in an unhealthy direction. E, engage and develop others. Third, reinvent continually. Reinvent continually. I heard this embodied from table number, what table are you, brother? Table number 1 embodied this as they said, we've got to engage in social media. And it went from Facebook to WhatsApp to Instagram. And we don't know what social media is coming, but we must continually reinvent how we are doing it. And we demonstrated it, right? How many of you, before COVID, used Zoom on a regular basis? How many of you knew what Zoom was before COVID? Yeah, only some of us did. But most of us had no idea. And now you will never unknow it, sadly. It's a part of our lives. It's a part of our culture. It's how we communicate now. So we reinvent continually. Fourth, the V, value relationships and results. You know, it may take some time to get to 1 million people for sharEvery to reach. And if all we do is focus on the million, we'll miss the journey that we're on. We must not become so focused on the goal that we miss the journey, right? We value relationships and results. And then finally, the E is embody values. We must embody the values that we espouse. And so if you are a group that's focusing on raising other people up, giving opportunities, developing communication, opening doors, then you too must be about that. Again, that spoken and lived reality. We must work through our lives to bring those things together. Okay, first, see the future. This is about vision. Some would say vision and leadership go together like sambar and rice. You know, can you have sambar without rice? Well, I guess you can. But is life better when you put them together? Of course it is. That's vision and leadership together. And so we must come to a place where we provide a compelling vision for those that we are seeking to reach. And you and I know it's not just about a pin. It's not just about a logo. We can have all the right branding, but if we don't have a purpose, a vision that's clarified. One writer said this, where there's no vision, people perish. Right? So we must have a clarified vision. And that, yes, it starts with our leadership, but it's embodied by us. We must have a vision that demonstrates what we want our organization to accomplish. In fact, I'm not going to take the time now, but this will be a good exercise for you. Can you, in a 30-second window, explain what sharEvery hopes to accomplish in the next 1 year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? And you can't say the simple things that we've already said. We're going to reach 1 million. Okay, but let's hear how we're going to do that in a short, compelling window. We want to see the future. And if you see it, you'll lead other people into it. And so, the problem is that vision leaks. It's like a faucet that drips a little bit. And if you have been in a home, or rented home, or an owned home, you know a small leak it's a systemic problem, right? Something is wrong. And so we want to hold to the vision. So brother, I appreciated your question about collaboration. I also appreciated your unwillingness to budge. We must be who we are. And that's important. And collaboration is the work of organizations seeking to amplify their shared goals. And we must be careful, right? We can dilute what is important to us by bringing in so many things from outside. Yet, at the same time, if we are careful, we can further empower our mission. And that's what it seems to be that we are aiming at. Leadership is about taking people from one place to another. One of a leader's top priorities must be to assure that his or her team knows where they are going. I heard something a moment ago, the statement, we will go into our own social groups and we'll share, right? The idea of multiplication. But when we multiply, you should ask the question, what is it we are multiplying? How will we judge the health of the next group? Is that group embodying who we are, what we do, what we want to accomplish? So we must see the future. Second, we must engage and develop others. The key word here would be people. We cannot be so focused on extending the organization that we forget that this organization rides on the rail of relationship. People, what I've heard, are the target. They are the aim, lifting people, whether it's someone in a position of poverty or someone with a position of opportunity and they don't know how to seize it. We are here in that space for this group. So we want to engage and develop others. So to create environments where people are wholeheartedly invested in the vision, you need more than just warm bodies. One motivational speaker in the U.S. would say, you need raving fans. You need people that are not just interested in doing what needs to be done. You need people that can't help but speak about it. Let me give you an example. I was in Thailand last week, and a brother of mine from Chennai, he felt compelled to call me on an international call, so he decides to spend the money. Do you know what he called me to tell me about? He said, I want you to know, the Super Kings are in the finals. All right, what does that mean? Some of y'all are really sad about that. But, na, Chennai le эркeng. Enora monası rumba santoshma anda is time le na angi irakumbori. So when I'm there, my heart is so happy. So the Chennai sambar is so nice. So he called me to tell me that. Why did he do it? Because it was so important to him. He wanted me to know what was important. He was embodying the value of a Chennai Super King, evidently. Now, I don't know much about cricket, but I learned a young man who does, and so he can teach me. So we want to embody those values. So some questions to consider. What does it look like for people to be engaged in this context? So think about it for a second. If you had a little person that you could mold, what would it look like from start to fully devoted follower, to a person who's fully invested in sharEvery? What does that look like? What's that process? Oh, well, you know, I spoke to a very articulate young man at the front desk. I wonder, has anybody invited him to sharEvery yet? Is anybody? Do you know what we're doing in that room? Do you know how we're talking about lifting people up? You're the front desk manager now. We want to encourage you to take all of your potential and fulfill it and own this place one day. So that's the idea of lifting our eyes, right? We have to see that every person has potential. I think that's what we're pursuing here. So we want to say, what does it look like for people to be engaged? You want to do more than just enlist people's hands. You don't want people just to hand out sharEvery buttons. You want to engage their hearts. Third, reinvent continuously. I love this when we talked about WhatsApp and Facebook, and we talked about how we're going to press out. When we brought in a group from Zoom just a moment ago, you know, there's an idea that in the culture that is constantly moving, that there's three key parts to play: new, improved, and improving. The idea that we're okay, we've arrived, we can just do this. We've got this meeting format, we'll just keep churning it out. Well, it seems to be that culture doesn't stand still. Culture just moves continually. And so how are we engaging in that? How are we continually reinventing the work we're doing? Not changing the core of it, but maybe adjusting the delivery in order that our message can go further and faster. I was also encouraged and quite confounded that we are in 55 countries, but by 2024, that's less than 6.5 months from now, we are going to move to 100 countries, is what someone said. That's ambitious. That's an incredible goal. And in order to do that, you're going to have to continue reinventing yourself, right? What if one of those countries is North Korea? You're going to have some creative methods, right? What if one of those countries is Pakistan? Some of us might have to, oh, right? You're like, wait, did he just say that? Yes, I did. Because I believe, if I understood correctly, the message that we possess is larger than any cultural or geographic or national divide. Is that okay for me to say? So it is incumbent upon someone in this room to say, how do we get this there? How do we get to Tajikistan? How do we get to Afghanistan? How do we get to the places that no one else is reaching? What does it look like to go to Bhutan with sharEvery? One of the most secluded countries in the world, Bhutan and North Korea. Maybe y'all should just put that on your list and, like, dream. When we talk about dreaming big, what does that look like? To have a footprint in every nation, among every people, in every place. That's near and dear to my heart. Maybe a different message, but the same goal. To reach every people. And what does that look like? And how do we do that? We've got to continuously reinvent ourselves. And so the question that you and I think need to ask here is, as a leader, how do I need to change? What do I need to do? How can I be different? How do I need to mold or adjust? When we moved to South Asia, there's a lot different about transportation here and transportation where I grew up. The main difference, you want to know what it is? Yes. Rules. We have them in America. And here, you just drive. I love it. I think I was made to drive. Sister, am I right?
Oh, we have rules. But it's just that we don't follow.
Yes, and I think it's wonderful. You can drive any way you want here. And it's like, as a foreigner, the policeman, I've learned this means come to me. But as a foreigner, I just, hello, sir, just keep driving. So that's maybe not the best. But the idea here is I've had to adjust part of my life in order to function in a place that is welcoming but different. And sharEvery will have to deal with some of these obstacles. Culture is different here than it is in America, than it is in South America. And in order for a message that we all say is worthwhile, we must be willing to adapt, to reinvent continually. So how do I need to change? Number 4, value, results, and relationships. You know what I heard from this sister was, I've got some professional and personal obligations that I can't be there, but I really want to be there. The idea of uncomfortable. Your value here is just as clear as day. First in-person workshop. Evidently, you all had some pre-existing relationships before today. But we know, we were made for stuff like this, for the mutual encouragement. Brother, I appreciated your questions to help clarify a point earlier. And that can be done on Zoom, but it's so much better in a place like this. And so we want to value results and relationships. And so, if we have an ambitious goal, but it takes us a little longer to meet it, but we are developing personally and professionally and relationally, we ought not undervalue those things. Now, that doesn't mean our metrics are unimportant. That doesn't mean we should not aim for goals. It doesn't mean we should be soft when it comes to our targets. Rather, we should pursue them together with great vigor, at the same time recognizing the importance of what we experience here today. So maybe a question to consider. What happens if I overvalue results? Or conversely, what happens if we overvalue relationships? Let me give you an example. If we overvalue results, we will burn some people to a place they can't cope up. Because, brother, as you said, you've got a life, you've got to live. And you may sit there physically, but mentally you're checked out. Because we only have so much fuel in the tank. And so if we just focus on results, we will not be able to accomplish the goal. Yet at the same time, if we focus too heavily on relationships, we'll spend too much time in the break and not much time in work. Right? our work groups around the table, we'll stop talking about the things we're accomplishing and we'll start catching up. So we've got to find that balance together. And number 5, embody the values. The important terms here would be to consider trust and credibility. Are we who we say we are? Are we a group that's aggressively pursuing our goal for others' good and for our own mutual joy? I think one question to maybe consider here is, what values or beliefs do I want to drive the behavior of this organization? Maybe that's a small work group. Maybe that's another time when we get together and ask those questions. What are the values critical to the life of this organization? That if we remove those, it's no longer sharEvery. Because when we do that, then when we have those collaborative conversations, we already know what we're not negotiating. Some would say it like this: we have open-handed issues and we have closed-handed issues. So we might have to define those. What are we not willing to budge on? And I guarantee it's not a brand, it's not a name, it's not a logo. It's who we are that's brought us together. There's a common thread that has run through every life and every heart that's brought us here today. From different places, different tribes, different peoples, different tongues, right? We are unified in a moment around English, but you might say his English is a little hard to understand. I didn't really understand what she said. And so, but we know we're here for a common purpose. And so we embody these values. The best teachers are always those who know they haven't got it figured out. Let me say that again. The best teachers are those who know they haven't gotten it figured out. Yes, you may be an expert in your field, but an expert who stops learning is immediately no longer an expert. So we must continue advancing and growing. Ultimately, a leader, I believe, must ask themselves, am I a servant leader or am I a self-serving leader? What am I serving toward? Part 1, leadership, knowing. Now quickly let's transition to part 2, leadership and doing. I want to give you some practical realities that relate to your own personal leadership and development. The first is this. Family, don't worry, brother, I started at 5 minutes early. So, I want you to think about a leader and his or her family. And this speaks to a leader's priorities. A leader must have the right mindset as it relates to his or her primary priorities. And let me demonstrate it this way. A leader who focuses solely on an organization at the loss or disappointment of his family or her family has lost the primary value that will then flow up into the organization. And so caring for your family is a critical reality. If your business is growing people and you're not growing the very people that you have been given to steward life with, then maybe you ought to get in a different business. A father who is serving and giving to other people yet is unwilling to care for his own children ought to reconsider, at least for a season, the serving that he's doing outside of the home. Family is tantamount to one of your greatest responsibilities that you'll ever be given. And so it's ours to steward. Here's the cold hard truth. If you cheat your family to invest in your career, to invest in sharEvery, your loved ones will pay a heavy price. Now, I love what I've seen in some brothers and sisters here in India, where it seems as though their work is a family endeavor. I love that when you can bring your family into your work. But I also know far too many, both from my country and from yours, that seem to parse that out. Dad goes and does what dad does, so mom can do what mom does, and the kids do what the kids do. And as a dad of a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old, I'm realizing, like, life is a vapor. It is simply gone. I was told years ago, don't blink your eyes, she'll grow up in a hurry. And now my 16-year-old is seemingly almost gone. She'll leave the house in August, she'll go to boarding school, and she'll step into a whole new world. My 13-year-old, he's got a little mustache now. I mean, he's just, I said he's got a nice mustache. So at 13, he's not supposed to have a mustache at 13. And my 10-year-old, he just runs out of the society, goes wherever he wants, takes some money in his pocket, his friends, and they go. Life is a vapor. In your family, you only get one chance with your family. And so, brothers, sisters, don't waste that. In your leadership in your life, place your family at the right priority. Secondly, practically speaking, create white space, or what someone calls Sabbath in your life. Take time to rest. Brother, I think just listening to you, hearing these people, they love you and care for you. They admire you. And I think we would all admonish you. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Rest. I heard this thing ago. I don't know if it was a joke or it was real. You call people and make sure they're eating the right things. Good for you, man. But, you know, the physician also needs care. And so that might mean some of us have to raise up as leaders to remove the burden of leadership. It also might mean we need to establish some healthy rhythms in our lives of rest and work. We were created to work, but we were also created to rest and enjoy. And so create that space in your life. Leading doesn't always mean doing. Sometimes leading means watching and observing. There's a fascinating methodology I work through in my own life. It's this: model, assist, watch, and leave. Model, assist, watch, and lead. I'm going to model what it looks like to be a good leader. I'm going to assist somebody else in being a good leader. I'm going to watch them be a good leader. And then I'm going to lead and let them lead. And Lord willing, they're going to do the same thing over and over for other people. So I am working toward creating white space and Sabbath. And then I'm supposed to listen. You know, I learned this from my dad a bunch of years ago. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. He was saying something. You understand? We're supposed to listen more than we talk. With that said, number 4, we might have to unlearn some things. You know, this is year 3 of sharEvery. That's right. So we could say, well, we didn't do it like that when we started, right? 5 years from now, we didn't do it like that in 2023. We've got to continually maybe unlearn some things. Maybe some of the things we've learned are a bit unhealthy. So we need to be willing as leaders to unlearn. Number 5, this is about engagement. Leadership isn't about you. It's not about you being disconnected, but it's about being around the people that you serve. I heard years ago, a shepherd is only a shepherd if he smells like what? Sheep, right? If a shepherd doesn't smell like sheep, what is he? He's a man without a job. That's what he is. And so we must be around people, engaging them, listening. And quite honestly, we'll be able to figure out how to better serve others in that moment. And the last thing I would tell you as a leader, you should read. You should read good books, good summaries. You should learn from other people. And not just from the time we're gathered here, but you should learn and seek out opportunities to learn. Some of the greatest learning that I've done in my life came through opportunities that I didn't even know existed, and those came from people who had gone years before me. Good, healthy books. And you know this, the leadership experts don't just come from the West. They're here in South Asia as well. We can learn from men and women who have served and led organizations. We can take things from the leaders of Zomato or Zoho, and we can say, how did they build that? And we can distill from their lives what they've experienced, and we can grow in those spaces. But we must learn. So let me say lastly, may we as learners, team members, and leaders continue growing, continue listening, and continue serving. Thank you for the opportunity today, and it's a great privilege to be here, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jacob. That was a very insightful session, and we learned a lot how to be a better leader. Light yourself up before you lift the others. That is what we learned from your session. It was very amusing that you used Tamil, few Tamil sentences also. So we had a nice time listening to your, session. Now, to move forward, I would like to call upon Mr. 𝐊𝐲𝐴𝐺 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐿. Mr. 𝐊𝐲𝐴𝐺𝐿 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐿 to provide your opinion and review on the session.
Wonderful. As I said earlier, so 42 years of experience, insightful thoughts, we got or not, you have to question everybody. So how many of you understood that he showed the way, whatever he knows the way, and whatever he goes the way, right? So a leader is the one who knows the way Who shows the way? Who goes the way? Right? So already he is a leader, that's why he is telling about leadership qualities. How many of you understand that 5 modules he has said? The first one, solve model. What? Solve model. He has taken that all about it, right? So for that itself, we understand step-by-step process he has taken and everything. What he said, the first thing, you have to see invisible things. A leader can see invisible things. And one more valid point, that invisible thing, you have to shape it also. See the future, shape the future. What a great line it is. We always just see the future, but we never shape the future. A leader can shape the future and show the future. Right? So give a big round of applause for that first of all. First to type itself, insightful thought. We have to see the future which normal people can't see. And the next one, we have to shape that. What is the second one? Anybody? E. Yes?
Engage and develop.
Yes, engage and then engagement and develop others. Generally, some leaders, sometimes they are afraid about developing others because they copy and they also become. No, leaders are not born. Leaders are not born. Already he mentioned that. Leaders are made. They are self-made. We have to develop, personally spending some time on us. Then we can. But it's not copy-paste. Everybody can become like that, right? So it's a self-made. So try to understand. We have to engage and then develop others. If we can't develop others, then definitely we can't develop ourselves. By giving only we take. If you give Paula, you get Rupai Paula. Like I said that if you give 100, you get 1,000. You give 1 million, you get 100 million. No giving, no getting. So giving is all everything. There is a quality of leader. So I strongly believe that. So S-E-R and R. What is that? Reinvent continuously. Many people, like we can take like Zuckerberg. Who is Zuckerberg? Facebook inventor. Right? Before he introduced this Facebook, there are many things he has invented. So what sir mentioned that reinvent continuously, again, because we have to understand, bees never afraid somebody can take that honey, because he can take honey from me, but he can't create honey like me. Right? So inventing quality is a leader quality. If anybody copy from us, so what? I can create another one, right? So this is very, very important. When you are going to become a leader, don't worry about that somebody copied. You have the quality of reinvent. Reinvent continuously some formulas. If somebody copied it, by the developing time, you can reinvent another formula. Values and then value of results and relationship. Is it? Value of results and relationship. So relationship also is very important in connecting with all of us. So when we have bad relationship, even that leader never see the future. So it's a relationship should be as much as strong. So everywhere family relationship is the best relationship that we have seen in India. So Indians are very good in building the relationship, and other country people also. But sir has taken from India. The family will involve. And usually in my organization also, there are many employees will come and left because of some time. I requested my wife, I begged my wife, take time, 2 years, 3 years, you are the administrator of my organization for lifetime. I can't give for others. Because even I tried others, they will leave one fine day, but you can't leave me, right? So you love me, you can't leave me, right? So if you leave, I can't love you, right? So that is why you live and live with me. You can't live, you can live with me. And anyhow, I love you, I take care of you until my lifetime. If I am not, you will be the next person who will take care of the organization, who will give back to the society, right? So that's what. So we have to include the family. But sometimes it's not possible. But try to understand, don't force them. They have their own goals, they have their own dreams. So we should not pressurize them to involve family. We can make other brothers and sisters to make a our family. We have to consider. So this is a very, very important relationship also. A leader, he can't build relationship, we can't. And next, E. Embody the values. We have to trust. We have to create the belief. Is it that? Our actions makes how others can understand. When we speak, when we do something, how people can understand, it's very important. Others may not understand what we say. The communication will change, right? So we have to understand this SAR model. Last but not least, all leaders are all readers. All leaders are all readers, but not all readers are all leaders. So you try to understand by reading books how people have become in the sense. only by just selling the books, online or offline or whatever the books, Jeff Bezos become a millionaire, one of the richest person, only by selling the books. One example, by the books, how we can become. The next person, and you know, Harry Potter's, who is he? The writer? J.K. Rowling. No, see, by writing books, she has become millionaire. By reading books, Warren Buffett has become millionaire. By selling, by reading, by writing, 3 people have proven in the world world's richest people. So try to understand, live about millionaire, first to try to become a leader. So for that we have to read the books. Right? If you are not a reader, you are not a leader. Don't expect that becoming a reader to become a leader. So reader means understand you yourself and others. I hope that today's leader is guiding us to become tomorrow's leaders. So we all have to work together for development of every individual and we ourselves also. When we develop, the organizations also will develop. Definitely a leader can develop by the organization but not individually. Right? So we are with a sharEvery. And I hope that, so every leader here, whoever are leaders here, because we want to learn, we have come here. So I'm sure that with this session, this 40 minutes of session is equal to, 40 minutes is equal to 42 years of experience, right? So every step of life, it has just squeezed the essence and we have taken in the essence and he said, leader is not by knowing, but doing. So if we do and prove ourselves as a leader in the coming days, 1-2 years of time, I'm sure that we have taken the essence from the Jacob sir. And we have to say, by standing ovation, give a big round of applause for Jacob sir. He has given his value of time. So the time is equal to money. The money is equal to the knowledge what we have taken. Right? So I thank you once again personally to Jacob sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shivaji Shankar, for your review. That was very energetic and enthusiastic. So now, to take the meeting forward, we have the next round called question answers round, which is called Tiny Talk. Take this up. We have a person who is a motivator, down to earth, whose purpose is to serve. He's also a lawyer and a Toastmaster. Please welcome Mr. Jagdish to take us forward. Thank you.
Very good evening to everyone. Thank you, Brother Jacob, for the wonderful speech. Now I request everyone, please, whoever asks questions, don't thank to start. Just come with only your question so that we can answer, so that people can ask more questions. Clear? Let that question be very, very crisp. It should not become an answer. Just be a question so that we can answer more. Right? Please raise your hand for your question. Yeah. First question goes to
Mr. Jacob, I just want to ask you, you gave 5 ground rules, like this is how the leader should be. I just want to ask you, leader needs to be emotional?
Okay, does a leader need to be emotional?
Yeah.
So, in my understanding, by the way, that's a great question. How we define emotional is an important part of answering that question. For instance, does a leader need to speak with compassion? Does he or she need to feel with empathy?
Yeah. Sometimes I have seen that a leader, when he wants to convey anything, it is very close to him, he starts crying. So they feel that, why did I cry in front of them when I want to convey what I want to convey? So that's how I got the question, is leader needs to be emotional sometimes to convey anything to others?
Yeah, in my view, I think it's a critical part of who I am as a human. I am an array of emotions. Now I've learned, at least in Tamil Nadu, men only seem to have one emotion. That's anger. That's the only one they show, right? But as I understand, all over the world, people are created full of emotions. And so I think a fully developed leader, certainly, whether male or female, would speak with that as a background. And in moments, they may have what appears to be anger. They may have what appears to be compassion. They may have what appears to be frustration. And I would assume that a leader has the freedom to speak in that way and lead in that way. For instance, when a leader looks at injustice, he or she ought to speak with a bit of what I would say is righteous anger, speaking against what is wrong and speaking for what is right. I also think something's important here too. Culturally, things are going to look different. For instance, in Eastern Europe, people are much more cold-natured. And I'm not speaking about the temperature, but just their lives. They're very, there's a phrase in Tamar, on the face, right? And so they're very on the face. They speak directly. But in many cultures, that's not the case. If I've got a conflict with my friend here, I need to go through a third party to address it. So I want to be careful to have a right understanding culturally about how emotions are used before I would make a pejorative statement about this is how it should be. Does that answer, Sangeeta ma'am?
Who's next? Yeah, please.
Sir, what I understood from the political leadership, so they believe that leadership means dominating, dictating, and controlling others. By doing so, they believe that they can keep up their leadership. But whereas you have given us a different kind of leadership, serving leadership, selfless leadership. But I don't see this kind of leadership in the politics. But again, they are strong leaders. People are accepting that leadership. So many followers are there. How can they become great leaders?
That's a great question as well. And I would say what I've presented is one model of leadership. And it's a model of leadership that I would want to embody in my own life, in my own family. But let me demonstrate it to you this way. I hesitate to speak about politics because it's such it can be a contentious topic. But in the life of my children, I am larger than my children. My voice is louder than my children. I am stronger than my children. And by virtue of those three things, my children have no choice but to follow me, right? If I say, get in the vehicle, they can argue, but if they decide to argue, I can physically put them in the vehicle. So I think, I didn't catch the third word, but you said dominate, dictate, and controlling others. I would say good, healthy leadership does not control others. Good, healthy leadership leads others. So the idea of being a dictator and a leader, in my mind, are not the same thing. A dictator is someone who takes control by force. But that is not what I would consider healthy leadership. Now, it happens all over the world, right? I mean, people lead by force. But when you get people away from that man or woman that's leading by force, and you ask the question, do you like this? They will do one of two things. One, they will lie to you because they are in fear of their life. Or two, they will tell you the truth and they will say, I mean, even in English, the word dominate carries a negative connotation. It speaks of using force for one's own benefit. So, in my own personal desire, I would not want to lead like that. But I also recognize, as a human being, I am under submission. So, last week, I was in Thailand. I took my children to a movie. And in Thailand, I've noticed it seems to be changing here in India, but in Thailand, before the movie begins, there's a tribute played to the King of Thailand. And when that tribute is played, do you know what we must do? We must stand. And so, immediately I stood up. You know, when I've gone to the cinema here in South Asia, what happens? The Indian flag begins to wave, and we all stand up, right, in honor. I'm not an Indian citizen, but I understand that there are cultural realities that I, living in this place, need to adhere to. So, if you live in China and you are working there, then you are subject to the rules of that land, just like I am, right? So when the police officer does this and I do this, and then he chases me on his bike and stops me, and he says to me in clear English, or for me, not clear Kannada, hey, this is not this. Give me your license and registration, and here's your fine. I'm not going like this and driving away, right? Because he has delegated authority. Someone's told him, and I've got a responsibility to that, to listen. So it's a long answer to your question, but in reality, we live in a world where dictated authority and leadership is present. But we also have seen pictures of leadership that that conjures followers. Let me give you an example, one that some of you will be familiar with. I told you I wasn't going to talk about politics, and I'm not going to speak so much about politics as I am affection. There was a lady in Tamil Nadu that was so deeply loved that even today, her picture will bring tears to people's eyes. Who am I speaking about? Yes, you all know. And now I'm sure some people didn't want anything to do with her, but there are so many people that when they speak of her, their heart speeds up, their eyes fill up, and I mean, they feel it, right? If you're a Tamilian, you know. It's like they feel it. And I would argue that is not dictated or dominated leadership. She could have led the Tamilian people to do just about anything, right? Because she led with a sense of purpose and passion, and she brought people in. And there's something to say for that. So that's a great question, brother. I hope I answered it.
Small question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How can a leader be constructive solution maker between superiors and subordinates?
Again, great question. So the question was, how can a leader give constructive solution?
How can be a constructive solution maker?
Yeah, between superiors and subordinates. Yeah, great question, by the way. So remember, one of the practical thoughts of leadership that I gave you is to listen. Now, one of I think the challenging parts of leadership is leaders have to make decisions, right? And so let's make a practical example. Let's say that half of us decide we want sharEvery to only pursue a membership of 50,000 in the next 2.5 years. But the other half say, no, we want to pursue 1 million. Okay, well, as I understand how we operate here, coach has to make a decision. And wise leadership, in my mind, is going to provide space for every person to voice what they believe. But then, definitive, clear leadership says, I will be decisive, I'll communicate, and then I'll lead. George W. Bush once said, I don't take people where they want to go, I take people where they need to go. So coach may look at both of those solutions and he may say, well, for the half of you that want to pursue 50,000, you're not stretching enough. And for the group that wants to pursue 1 million, he may say, you're not anchored in reality. That's not a real smart goal. So this is what we're going to do. And so I think superiors and subordinates, oftentimes language matters, right? So I want to lead from a position where a subordinate feels like their voice is valued, their opinions matter, and the superior is empowered to lead as a servant. Now, what has to happen often is the superior is going to have to allow the subordinate to lead. Right? There's an idea in an orchestra leading from a second chair. The first chair in an orchestra has the lead instrument. They're the ones that all the attention is on. But the second chair is critical. If you remove all the second chairs, the entire orchestra doesn't sound right. So helping the subordinate recognize his or her value in the entire process, I think, is critical. And helping the superior recognize how that authority that has been delegated to them is delegated. It's not endued inherently to them. And so it positions them properly as well. Fantastic question.
Thank you very much. Last 2 questions. One is from, okay, yes, 2 questions.
Who is a true leader? One who has a number of people who serve you, or who serves many people. Who is a true leader?
Again, a great question. So I think in the question we have the answer. Someone who has a number of people serving him or her, or someone who's serving with people. I would always base my definition on the preposition with, right? So he's serving or she's serving with people. Again, there's an idea that a leader has to be out front. Yet at the same time, he or she is with the people that they are leading. When a leader distances himself or herself from the people that they are leading, that gap creates additional distance emotionally, relationally, at times spiritually, and even in the understanding of what's being accomplished. And when a leader moves into the place of you exist to serve me, that's dangerous territory, right? Because at that point, the leader exists for the sake of the leader. Now, I can tell you about businesses. Businesses that exist in order to exist turn into what? Bureaucracies. They fill themselves with red tape and they no longer accomplish what they set out to accomplish. So a leader who is focused on having himself or herself served, I would say, has lost the vision of what they set out to accomplish. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is 𝐊𝐧𝐨𝐰𝐢𝐧𝐶. As a leader, have responsibility to collaborate with the communities. Yes. So each and every community has its own boundaries. As a leader, how can you break the boundaries?
Yeah, again, great question. Let me give you an example. Several years ago, there was an American who decided he was going to go to the Andaman Islands. He had a purpose that he felt like he was accomplishing, and there were boundaries set around that community from the community itself, from the government of that, so from the Indian government, they put boundaries around that, and he decided his mission was significant enough to him that he should break those boundaries. Now, for him, it cost him his life. He was killed by those local Andaman Island inhabitants. So he determined that his mission was so significant that he had to do that. Now, there's going to be moments where you're going to have to decide, my mission is so important that I cross boundaries even when others don't want me to. Then there's other times when we recognize, so let me give you a real life example here. We are in India, right? So we know that the caste system was abolished years ago, right? But I would say to you, caste is bad, but caste is real. And so what I've heard is we want to reach across socioeconomic boundaries. I sat beside a family in the Thailand airport, and they are from Brahmin descent. And they made clear to me, they separate themselves from other people. I've got friends that are Jains, and they won't reach out to befriend other people. They eat in their own home. They won't go into other people's houses. So might I ask you, what does it look like for sharEvery to reach into those communities? Because if I've understood correctly, our vision, our mission is for all people in all places. 1 billion people, every country, every place. And so we believe what we have will serve humanity, right? Across borders, across boundaries. And so we, though, I believe, can live in such a way where our mission becomes appetizing to other people. I heard a leader once say this way. He said, "You are the salt of the earth." Well, what happens when you have salty food? Do you know what happens, sister? You're thirsty, right? You want to drink. And so, what does it look like for us to have that saltine characteristic, right? Oh, did you meet those people at the Coral Tree Hotel? They were just so kind. I would love to spend more time with them. They had a certain quality about them. And so I think our character, our foundation, our purpose can transcend some cultural and community boundaries that we don't have to push. But just because of what we're doing, we're able to get into places that maybe others can't. Does that work, brother? If I don't intend to offend any cultural sensibilities, but I think we do see some realities where we live here that pose some challenges to us. And I don't think challenges are bad. When we've got a mission and a vision that is worth giving our lives to, we ought to be able to traverse any obstacle. It doesn't matter if it's a valley or the Himalayas, right? It's like we believe that sharEvery should be on top of Mount Everest at the Himalayas, from the very top of the world all the way to the very bottom, right? From the Dead Sea to the Himalayas. Let us take sharEvery everywhere, right? I think that's what I've heard.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Jagdish, for conducting the tiny talk session. Next is the announcement by anchor person 𝐊𝐧𝐲𝐵.
Ladies and gentlemen, 𝐅𝐼𝐬𝐧𝐿, I am 𝐊𝐧𝐲𝐵, presently working as the president of 𝐅Every Global Foundation, Andhra Pradesh. I am working as a principal in one of the corporate organizations in Andhra Pradesh. 𝐅Every Global Foundation has been conducting various programs in connection with the enrollment and enhancement of the people, especially. We have 4 programs to run. One is a formal meeting that is on Tuesday, a general meeting in which people do come from various walks of life and gather together and share their ideas, share their experiences and everything. And the next one is we have a grammar session in which we do get the best grammarians from various corners of the world and to conduct sessions for the people who are interested and especially learning English. The next one is a smarty session that seems to be the highlight of the 𝐅Every Global Foundation. We will conduct the wonderful session for the kids below 15 age. We will provide them a very source of inspiration and impact us to learn and talk English. The next one is what we have seen today. Really, that is advanced session. Now I am afraid that whether we have to conduct advanced session. It has been very wonderful to watch him today. And when we conduct it online, we may have some hiccups, whether we are absolutely following the speaker or not. But here today, see what a silence we have been here today. Everybody has been in the hip of silence. Now I am afraid whether we have to conduct the session in every week offline. See, that is the reason we have been thinking of. So this is the session which you have been conducting, and we will follow. Please to follow us in every social media. We are on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all WhatsApp. And you can be a donor as well as a speaker. Please do emulate and bring a lot of people into 𝐅Every platform such that the next time when we meet together, we can have many a number of rooms and platforms booked together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. 𝐊𝐲𝐵. Before we end the session, so Mr. Jacob, can we have a few concluding words?
Sure. My encouragement would be, so several years ago, my wife and I started the process of learning Tamil. And for us, it was very challenging. We were told by one chemist, she said to us that Tamil is like an ocean, and when you finish, you will just know a drop. I was so discouraged. But from that, I took a phrase and just held on to it. And it was simply this: learn a little, practice a lot. Learn a little, practice a lot. And maybe today, you've been here since 9:30 this morning. You've received much, probably more than you can put into practice in the next 7 days, maybe the next 7 months. There's just so much here. So might I encourage you to take something small that you've heard and put it into practice. Maybe you would work like I did as I was learning Tamil, and you would learn a little but practice a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jacob. We would like to end the session. Before that, I want to thank each and every one present here for giving your time, listening throughout and being present in the session. Thank you, panel members. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. And thank you, SGF, for conducting this session. Thank you all.